This is So in Flow, a podcast to help you activate the power of creative flow in every part of your life, business, and of course, creative process. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Seahorse Bookstore, an independent bookstore with a mission to awaken the imagination. Order your books and stream your audiobooks through Seahorse. Hey, this is Molly Murray. Welcome to So in Flow. Hello, So in Flow. This is episode 2, in which I spill the tea on the creative archetypes. I have studied the process of creativity for the past 15 years, and I've always tried to answer this question. What makes some artists succeed and some artists, who are often equally or even more talented, not succeed in the ways that they want to? I started writing for a local music venue when I was in college. I still think of it as one of my luckiest breaks ever because I just loved it so much. I went to college in the Idaho Panhandle. It felt like we were in the middle of this golden age of indie music in the Pacific Northwest, and I got to interview so many incredible musicians. That experience really set me on this path of studying the process of creativity. I remember listening to a friend around that time. His music blew me away. I remember thinking, this is better than Coldplay, but why is he playing in this tiny venue in a tiny town, basically unknown, while they're over there on a huge global stage? I spoke to so many gigantic talents like that, many of whom were creating amazing music and influencing very famous musicians, but were usually basically unknown and unrecognized themselves, and almost all of them struggled to pay bills or for anything else. That's when I started to get curious about the secret ingredients of creative success. Why do some people seem to be thriving, and some creative people seem to be stuck on this hamster wheel of just surviving, just getting along and striving? I asked every musician the same questions. What is your creative process? What inspires you? And who is your favorite creative? Some of my favorite interviews later went into a book called The Atelier Project, Conversations about Creativity, which became my master's thesis at the University of Glasgow. That experience with the music venue taught me that I knew my people. I began a lifelong habit of becoming part of a creative community wherever I lived. I edited a blog for one for years, and this gave me the courage to begin my own creative communities in places that lacked them. As life went on, I went to summer school for creative writing at Oxford and reconnected with an old friend from Scotland. We had this gorgeous 3-day fling, and now we've been married for 10 years and have an 8-year-old, a pug, a kitty, and a bookstore with a creative community of our own. I got my master's in creative writing from the University of Glasgow. I freelanced as a writer and an editor, but I knew nothing about business at the time. I wrote for magazines and literary journals. I became the senior outdoors editor of a literary journal about travel and place. I was published in over 30 publications. For years, I surrounded myself with starving artists, and I deeply identified as a starving artist as well. I celebrated everyone who managed to break the mold, get out of the bucket, and thrive as a creative person. But at the same time, I felt so envious. I wanted it so very deeply for myself. I always felt torn. I felt like I would have to choose either follow my creativity or have money, follow my Pisces sun, who is a poet, or follow my inner Virgo moon, who's a thriving entrepreneur. It was my journey to bring these two oppositional energies together that helped me become that thriving creative. But the journey took me very far from where I thought I would be, as most journeys do. My life took a turn, and I took what I thought was a detour. Because the block is the way. The block is always the way. The blocks in your path hold the keys that you need to become who you want to be. If a manifestation is not coming through, know that the journey you are on to overcome whatever challenge is in between you and your desire is exactly where you need to be. It's not a detour, it's the path. The block is the way. I mentioned a bit of my story in the first episode, but I'll recap it here in case you're listening for the first time. I went through several extremely traumatic experiences in my teenage years and early 20s. For a long time, I felt like I was caught in a relentless cycle of trauma that was spinning around and around. I felt like I was falling deeper and deeper, and every time something else difficult happened, I felt like I would never climb out. Then the illness began. Spasms, flares of extreme pain, awkward, life-debilitating symptoms. I ignored all of it as long as I possibly could, until I couldn't ignore it any longer because it had completely taken over my life. After years of searching in the UK and the US, I finally got a diagnosis while we were languishing in the snow of Montana. A world-renowned surgeon told me that I had a progressive and so-called incurable pain disease, one of the worst in the world. It was already so bad that I was almost bedbound, but he told me it would get worse and worse as time went on. He used the word incurable. At that time, my son was 3. I was already dealing with extreme pain flares every other day or so, pain flares that were worse than giving birth, and it was becoming more and more difficult to cope in between. I remember sitting on the bed with the phone in my hands thinking, I do not accept this reality. Incurable just means that there isn't a cure yet. I knew that this was my deadline. It was now or never. All of the pieces came together as I learned that unhealed trauma leads to physical manifestations and physical symptoms. In order to heal my body, I had to heal the trauma I had been through in my conscious mind, my subconscious mind, my energy field, which was manifesting itself in the cells of my physical body. And I knew that if I did this, it would be so hard. I would have to change my life so radically. But it would be absolutely worth it if I could find freedom myself, and I could help others to do the same. I knew that I would have to lead others through the same journey, that this was my life purpose. I needed to help others heal from trauma as well. So with this in my mind, and with a vision of my son and I running on a beach in Scotland, I biohacked the disease. In 6 months, I healed the disease that had ruined my life for about 10 years. In 9 months, we'd gotten the visa, completely packed up and decluttered our life, and moved to Scotland. I'd gotten completely off of pain medications along the way, a side note which I still feel might be the biggest miracle of all. We moved back to Scotland, and I started my journey as an entrepreneur during the lockdowns. We moved into my dream house on a beach, opened our bookstore, and I felt that life was complete. But I didn't come full circle until I had come through further cycles of healing myself and done dozens of healings with creative people. Through my work as an energy healer and a rapid transformational therapy practitioner, I began to identify the creative archetypes and to observe the subconscious patterns. Archetypes are ancient, universal truths about humanity that are present in the collective subconscious. They're a name for a pattern or a series of habits that stem from a deep subconscious wound. When I saw these wounds and observed the patterns in each type, I finally saw what makes a striving creative become a thriving creative. And that's what I want to share with you today. The creative dabbler becomes the creative powerhouse. The creative rebel becomes the creative trailblazer. And the striving creative becomes the thriving creative. When you heal the wounds and you shift the habits, the archetype shifts as well. You'll probably recognize yourself in at least one, or maybe all of these archetypes. We all have shades of them, or maybe you've typified one in one season of your life and another in a different season. The creative dabbler is the first. If you are a creative dabbler, you are a super creative thinker. You are generally so inspiring and so creative. You're just bubbling over with good ideas all the time. You're probably deeply empathetic, so encouraging and so bubbly and fun to be around. You're an amazing friend and you love hanging out in creative groups. But if you're a dabbler, you're probably used to experiencing some pretty depressing executive dysfunction. You might have a really difficult time with execution. It probably feels really hard and sticky to start or to finish a project. Or maybe you never get to the end because you find it just so difficult to slog through the middle. And because you feel this stuckness in some way, you're usually surrounded by piles of unfinished projects. In fact, you probably have so many people and so many projects going on that you generally feel pulled in all different directions, and you might have a sense of overwhelm. This often makes it really even more difficult to focus. You feel distracted, and it's hard to find the time to really zero in. You might think that procrastination is the problem. You might blame it on perfectionism or imposter syndrome. You might even have a cold feeling of fear in the pit of your stomach. But the reality is that all of these symptoms are rooted in the self-power wound, a deep subconscious wound that you received, probably at a very young age, and most likely from a toxic relationship in your life. Maybe a toxic friend or family member, maybe a bully. You probably tend to be codependent. If you're a dabbler, it's quite likely that you grew up in a somewhat dysfunctional household with toxic relationship systems, and very unhealthy boundaries, and it's highly likely that you're a lovely, sensitive, giving soul who's quite often the target of narcissists. Once you see this, you can't look away. Just like once you see the trauma behind all of these symptoms, you see that you're responding to it with a freeze, fawn, or flop response. This is why executive function feels just so difficult and why life often feels so stuck for dabblers. It's because you are stuck in the freeze, fawn, or flop response. Because of this wound, you have a deep disconnection from your own power. You don't see it. You don't feel it. You don't have that inherent sense of power in yourself. And you've forgotten that your words, your actions, and your creativity holds power as well. When you don't feel like you matter, it's really difficult to see that what you create matters as well. You probably feel deeply attuned to criticism and might even depend on someone else or someone else's opinion for your self-worth. I see this as the type of so many lost artists, the creatives who did not complete their projects because of toxic systems or their own unhealed trauma. I see this as Zelda Fitzgerald, who was entangled in a very enmeshed, traumatic relationship with her husband, F. Scott Fitzgerald, who often stole her work and passed it off as his own. This was also Brian Wilson, the lead singer of the Beach Boys, whose life was swallowed up by a horrific relationship with his manager, which is shown in the film Love and Mercy. Creative dabblers create a lot of one-hit wonders, or even whole albums and legacies like Brian Wilson, but then they fade away. Daisy Jones and the Six, a book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and now a show on Amazon Prime, is about a whole group of creative dabblers. They experienced huge success, but became a flash in the pan because of toxic relationship patterns and low self-worth. Of course, dabblers have a really hard time focusing or finishing their work if you can't see how incredibly, inherently powerful you are and how incredibly powerful your work is. Of course you fear it's not good enough or strong enough if you can't feel your own inherent value and your own inherent strength. When you are unable to see the boundary between yourself and other people, this generally translates into your work as well. How do you separate yourself from it and see it as a fully birthed creation? When you heal the wounds and shift the habits, you feel your power, and you can feel the power of your creativity as well. You feel the power of your creative work. You are able to set it aside and call it complete. When you heal the self-power wound and shift the trauma trapped in your subconscious, your energy field, your conscious mind, and your cells, and make a few tweaks to your habits, that's when you become the creative powerhouse. That's when you bring all of those brilliant ideas to life, especially the ones that really matter to you. Because you know that when you create, you are changing the world. You are making a difference. You matter. You are important. You hold a deep inherent power, and your work holds power. If you identify with this type, I'd ask that right now, before you do anything else, you stand in the Wonder Woman pose. I'll give you a moment to do that. I'm serious. Stand up. Feel that power surging through your body. Root your feet in the floor. Now take 3 deep breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Repeat the mantra, I am enough. My work is enough. I am deeply connected to my power. I vibrate at the frequency of the creative powerhouse. I am powerful. Doesn't that feel good? Do you feel that power running through you? The world needs you. The world needs your creativity. You are here for a reason. You are absolutely making a difference in this world. Yes! If you are a creative powerhouse, you are a total intentional action taker. And even though you're probably multi-passionate, you're able to focus on what matters to you and get her done. If you are a creative powerhouse, you have a self-sovereign relationship style and kick-ass boundaries. You have a healthy sense of self-worth, and you know that what you do matters deeply, and you're able to prioritize what is important to you. You have so many different interests, but you complete the projects that matter to you. You know that done is better than perfect, and you can put your work aside and trust that it has a life of its own. Creative powerhouses are those incredible people who do all sorts of things, and people wonder, what? How do they do it all? Creative powerhouses are polymaths like Brian May, who is the lead guitarist of Queen and is now an astrophysicist on the BBC, or Rachel Cargill, who is an advocate and a writer and a cellist. A lot of successful entrepreneurs are creative powerhouses. They're the slashies, the ones that are doing so well, even though they seem to be breaking out of every niche, like Jenna Kutcher, who's an award-winning wedding photographer and has made huge waves as a business coach and is also obsessed with macaroni. If you followed Caroline Calloway on Instagram, you've seen her rise from being a creative dabbler to being a creative powerhouse. She was all over the place for years, like so much fun and so creative, and also very open about how most of her favorite destructive habits were trauma coping mechanisms. She received tons of criticism from her massive social media following, as well as from most major outlets, and she was totally known as a scammer until she healed. She focused, she created, and now she's receiving rave reviews of her new book, titled Scammer, from all of those same critical media outlets. Whoa, just such a creative powerhouse move. Are you ready to create something that matters? The world needs you. The world needs your creativity. You are here for a reason, and you are absolutely making a difference in this world. So that is the Creative Dabbler and the Creative Powerhouse. Now on to the next type. If you are a creative rebel, you are a passionate, fiery soul who cares so deeply about the world. You perceive deep problems, and you often have a profound vision to make them right. You can clearly envision the way to create change in a way that others can't see. You are here to change the world in wonderful ways, and you want to create impact. And because you feel so strongly, you're often caught in an emotional pendulum. You might experience high highs and then drop down to low lows, and often land in depression instead of balance. You just want to feel good again, so you take action in a responsive way, often acting from outrage just to hit that emotional high again, or creating randomly. Your action is spontaneous but not sustainable. It has no connection to your soul. This is exhausting, and it often sends you back to depression, feeling frustrated and pointless, until you respond to something in your life, or maybe feed yourself with outrage just to feel that emotional high again. If you identify as a Facebook warrior or a social justice warrior on Facebook, then you know how this feels. You want to make a difference, and then you begin a discussion, and then you end up frustrated because people aren't listening. But you just want to feel that high again, because when you feel deeply, you feel a connection to yourself, a connection to your soul flow. You're so creative and so innovative, and your hands are just itching to dive in and create what you are here to create. But you probably feel disconnection or a sense of being ungrounded. You just wish you had balance in your life. You're so full of potential, but even that tends to pull you down, because all of that raw talent is still raw and not results. How do you create something that really matters and really makes a difference? And how do you do all of this when you're carrying the weight of generational trauma and the weight of really oppressive systems of being? The injustice of the systems in place often holds you down. Sometimes it feels difficult to survive and very difficult to create with the pressures of daily life. It feels like you've worked so hard for so long to make things better, but they keep staying the same, and it's so frustrating. Here's the thing. You don't fit into the system because you were never meant to fit into the system. You are here to change it. You are here to create your impact and to change the world, and you need to be deeply grounded and create from your soul. If you are a creative rebel, you probably received a deep flow wound in your early years that disconnected you from your inherent self-trust and intuition. It disconnected you from your soul flow, and it's really hard to connect back and create without a source of flow. So no wonder it feels like running uphill. Even though you work so hard, it always feels like you're treading water. If we're looking at the symptoms of trauma, if you're a rebel, then you're probably stuck in the fight mode. You have this sense of permanent outrage, and it's probably just to connect to feeling once again. The rebel is the formerly gifted child who often feels that they wasted their potential. This is James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. This is Eddie in Stranger Things. And sorry, I'm going to give a major spoiler alert, but I'm going to try not to give too many details. So Eddie is this amazing, adorable character, and he wants to create change and do something amazing so much, but he was unable to find his way free of the symptoms of trauma and systemic injustice. So at last, at the end of the show, he makes a valiant last effort to make a difference. And okay, just close your ears if you haven't watched it. Give me 10 seconds. But anyhow, he dies while he does it. And it's tragic. And this is why we all feel for him so much, so deeply. We feel the tragedy of him not creating impact every bit as much as the tragedy of his death. We feel that tragedy, that that wasted potential because he wanted to create impact so much. He wanted to create change so much that this becomes just this beautiful theme running through his life. And it is really beautiful to see that in his death, but also so tragic that he did not get to experience that as well. And if you are a creative double, or sorry, that was a misspeaking. If you are a creative rebel, then you probably have a deep fear of this as well. It's frustrating and maybe it's frightening, but don't worry, you've got this. Put your hand on your heart. Take 3 deep breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Repeat the mantra, I'm deeply rooted. I'm deeply connected. I create from my soul flow. I vibrate at the frequency of a creative trailblazer. When you heal the flow wound and you shift your energy, you become the creative trailblazer. The creative trailblazer is a creative change maker. You're passionate and motivated, imaginative and innovative, but centered and deeply grounded. Creative trailblazers are intentional and deeply intuitive. If you are a creative trailblazer, then you create from your soul. You are a positive thinker, and although you may have those momentary lows, you know how to bring yourself home to emotional balance. Creative trailblazers have a deep sense of self-trust and take soul-inspired action to create impact and create a legacy. If you are a trailblazer, you are a visionary creative leader. You actualize all of your potential. You experience satisfaction and success. Trailblazers are often political artists like Banksy or entrepreneurs who want to make a difference in the world, like Melanie Perkins, the creator of Canva. Melanie Perkins studied design in college, and because she was great at computers and software as well, she found herself tutoring other students on how to use the difficult design software. She saw the systemic problem that design software is not user-friendly, and she decided that she wanted to change that and make design software user-friendly so that you don't have to be a computer expert to create good designs. So she dropped out of college with her boyfriend, Cliff Obrecht, and together they created Canva. Now, 10 years later, Melanie Perkins and Cliff Obrecht are multi-billionaires with so much heart and passion to change the world in wonderful ways, and particularly to end extreme poverty. They plan to give away their fortunes in their lifetimes, and they say in their giving pledge that we have this wildly optimistic belief that there is enough money, goodwill, and good intentions in the world to solve most of the world's problems. We feel like it's not just a massive opportunity, but an important responsibility, and we want to spend our lifetime working towards that. The world needs more successful and visionary creative trailblazers just like them. At last we come to the striving creative. You know this type. It's the starving artist of ancient days. If you are a striving creative, you are a creative survivor. If you are a striving creative, you know deep down that you are here on this earth to create something amazing that rocks the world, and you'll do anything or give up anything in order to live your purpose. You are an artist to your core, and you are absolutely amazing at your craft. You've perfected it to another level, and you've definitely got that wow factor. You've come so far and been through so much to get to where you are now. But you might feel drained. Every challenge just seems to lead to another. Sometimes you find yourself thinking, why does life feel so difficult? Why does it feel like I have to give something up if I want to do what I love? Maybe you resonate with the phrases, I just can't win, or I just can't get ahead. You probably have an unsustainable work-life balance and maybe feel pretty dissatisfied. You might feel drained. You might realize you've been neglecting yourself in some way. You probably feel lack and scarcity pretty deeply in at least one area, if not others. And it's it's easy to cut out that self-care routine. Most of all, if you are a striving creative, you'll know it because you always experience lack in at least one area of your life. Maybe it's a lack of love or health or money. Maybe it's a lack of success and fulfillment. If you have creativity, you probably suffer in other ways. If you have all the other things going on, you might have just had to give up on your creativity. You might have thought, oh, I'll push it aside and wait till later when I've had my career or the kids grow up. This is why I prefer to call them striving creatives rather than starving artists. Striving creatives are always starving artists in one or more areas of their life, but it's not always starving for money. You might have plenty of money but no love, for instance, or you might have a starving artist wound and hold the belief that you have to give up in one place to actualize your creativity. Striving creatives can be incredibly successful, like Jennifer Aniston, who has a hard time finding lasting love, but an awesome career, or Whitney Houston, who has fame and success, but died when she was millions of dollars in debt. One of my favorite striving creatives currently on the scene is Lewis Capaldi. He's from Glasgow, he's a homeboy, but mainly because he's just such a lovely, caring person, and has shared all about his struggles with his mental well-being. He is considering giving up his art for his emotional well-being and mental balance. But because he is focusing on taking care of himself and healing from trauma and just protecting himself, I fully believe that because of this healing, we'll see him become a thriving creative really soon. Striving creatives always have to give up on something or other. There's this deep sense of sacrifice. If you're a striving creative, you'll probably find yourself using expressions like, I'd give all of this up to do whatever it is you love, fill in the blanks, or I wanted to make money, so I gave up on what I really loved, or I'll do it when I retire. This either-or choice probably appears in many areas of life for you. You might feel pulled between inspiration and consistency. You probably focus on short-term wins instead of long-term goals. The striving creative is deeply creative and often, but not always, very successful while they do it, in at least one area. If you are a striving creative, you'll find yourself thinking, why does it feel so hard to find good balance where you can make money, create art, and live a good life? It's not too much for ask for, is it? Let me tell you, it's not too much. But if you're a striving creative, you probably received a deep wound early on, the starving artist wound, and that led you to believe that you can't have it all, that you'll always have to sacrifice something precious if you want to do what you love. This wound is often passed down generationally, and this wound is found nearly everywhere, in so many places. But guess what? You are not here to live like everyone else, are you? You're here to break cycles. You're here to change the world. You are here to be in a world where artists thrive. You are here to experience that gorgeous flow in every single part of your life. And to do that, you need to heal the starving artist wound that tells you that you have to sacrifice something in order to do what you love. You have to shift the habits and start vibrating at the frequency of the thriving creative. Now cross both hands over your heart. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth and say, I deserve good things. I deserve wholeness. I deserve all the good things. I deserve to do what I love and enjoy money, love, health, and abundance on all levels. I deserve wholeness. I vibrate at the level of the thriving creative. Yes! If you are a thriving creative, you are a creative bon vivant. You are the one who has it all. Life seems to just flow for you. You're aligned and intentional. You have a sustainable life and career and focus on long-term goals. You take care of yourself and you feel like you're flourishing. You're able to pour yourself into your work and then you're able to let go and surrender it. If you are a thriving creative, you can see that your creative work has its own life, its own power, and it's part of a bigger purpose. The thriving creative is able to release their projects and surrender to flow. If you are a thriving creative, you're an artist with wealth and abundance. You're deeply, intentionally healed or healing and have a deep belief that you can have it all. You have love in your life because you love yourself so deeply. You focus on your happiness and well-being and you experience fulfillment. It's like having the World card in the tarot deck. These are the Oprahs and the Gwyneth Paltrows of the world. These are the Paul McCartneys and the Taylor Swifts. This is Keanu Reeves and Reese Witherspoon. But thriving creatives are not always on this mega scale. Maybe it's your aunt or your art teacher. It's that someone in your life who's created a life that they absolutely love and they're out there living their best life. They're experiencing flow in every area of life. So that is the thriving artist. I'm just going to give you a quick recap. If you are a creative dabbler, you're a super inspiring creative who always has an imaginative project up your sleeve, but you probably have a somewhat sticky time producing the art that you want to create. If you are a creative powerhouse, you're a super creative person who has millions of projects on the go, but you are able to prioritize and finish the projects that are important to you. If you are a creative rebel, you're a super motivated creative, and you probably create quite a lot, but you have a difficult time creating the impact that you want to create. If you are a creative trailblazer, you're a super motivated creative, and you're able to focus in and create that project and that impact. You are a creative leader. If you are a striving creative, you absolutely live and breathe creativity, but life feels so difficult because you're always sacrificing something important to create. On the opposite side, if you're a striving creative, perhaps life is very full, but you're not enjoying that creativity that you have. You're putting it off until later. If you are a thriving creative, you absolutely live and breathe creativity. You finish the projects that are important to you, and you are making waves, creating that impact, and absolutely thriving in the areas that are important to you. You have flow in every area of life. Every time you feel out of flow in an area of life, it's just a little nudge, an invitation to come further into alignment. It's a little sign pointing you home to full flow. Because the thriving creative feels flow in every part of life, and this flow is exactly what sets the thriving creative apart from the striving creative. And let me tell you, we are not here to strive. We are all here to thrive and to be thriving creatives. Creative people are my people. When creative people create the visions on their hearts, they change the world in wonderful ways, and the world is a better place. That's the world I want to live in. I'm here to help creative people bring their visions to reality and to thrive in every way. So I'd love to give you an invitation to work with me to create the magic of flow in your life. If you would love a subconscious transformation meditation to help you focus and become immersed in creative flow, no matter what else is going on in your life, then hop on my website, sowandflowwithmollymurray.com, and download 15 minutes to focus and flow for free. If you are a conscious creative who would love community and accountability, I'd love to invite you to join the Luminaries Creative Collective, a creative community where you can take part in lush, inspiring creative gatherings. If you are a conscious creative and would love to become an intentional and thriving creative leader, I invite you to apply to become a luminary through the Luminaries Creative Collective course for thriving creatives. This 6-module course uses my exclusive Muse method to guide you to heal the wounds and shift the patterns to go from creative Dabbler to creative Powerhouse, from creative rebel to creative trailblazer, and from striving creative to thriving creative. Experience the magic of flow in every part of your life. If you are a conscious creative who would love to experience support along your creative journey and to experience the power of flow in every area of your life and work, then reach out to me about my lush one-on-one creative mentorship packages. Let's bring your vision to reality together. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Seahorse Bookstore, the independent bookstore I own with my husband and son in North Ayrshire, Scotland. Order your books and stream your audiobooks through Seahorse. Support our beautiful community. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your time and your energy. And thank you for being a part of the Sow and Flow podcast community. I am so excited for you to create the visions on your heart. I'm so excited for you to create the impact you deserve. And I'm so excited for you to truly thrive as a creative. Together, we are changing the world in wonderful ways. And if this discussion piqued your interest, I hope you stay in tune for the next episode.